All right, we are live. We are live, and I'm coming at you with five. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of G Boot 2786, and this is my show, Gavin Richard Presents. I'm Gavin Richard. Welcome to G Boot 2786, guys. If you're just tuning in, we're gonna wait for a little more people to get in the chat room. Again, I uploaded some links to these articles and our topics. Oh damn, I didn't mean to delete that. It's okay. I'll get it back. Hope everybody's doing well. We are ready for the weekend. This video, I'm definitely going to try to keep under 20 minutes or so if I can. But wanted to share this with you. Let's see if we get some more people in the chat room. Let me just click on this. There we go. It takes a little while sometimes for people to get in. But this video, we're going to be talking about the Bill Cosby appeal that's set to happen. Oral arguments are going to be made on August the 12th, if I'm not mistaken, of 2019. August 12th, according to, I have it from the Washington Informer. Let's see. Oral arguments. August 12th, Monday, August 12th. So that's coming up. Now, I wanted to do this video. Yesterday, the news went out that Janice Dickerson was given a defamation suit settlement in her defamation suit against Bill Cosby, and that she got, which I always said that most of this was nothing but a money shakedown. Now, her attorney was Lisa Bloom, of course, and Lisa Bloom is the daughter, the hellspawn of another hellspawn and racist Gloria Allred. If they even see this video, which I doubt, I know attorneys were supposed to show respect and be courteous with each other, but I don't like either of these ladies. I think that their tactics are a disgrace to the profession, and I frankly feel Miss Allred is a racist. It's not that I know for a fact, because if you look at the work that she's done when she's in the courtroom, and I don't think she's, well, not even in the courtroom, in front of a camera, she only targets, apparently, male black celebrities for their millions. You know, you've got Bill Cosby. She went at Michael Jackson. She actually went at Mike Tyson on a phony rape charge in Arizona that Tom Mesereau represented Mike Tyson on. She also went at Tiger Woods when Tiger Woods was the victim of an assault by his ex-wife, his wife at the time. So the woman it's no mystery of who this woman truly is. Now, and Janice Dickerson got caught lying on the witness stand. She admitted that she had lied when she testified in April of 2018 in Bill Cosby's retrial. Now, if she got caught in lying and she admits she's lying under oath, which, how can you take her seriously? How could this judge, and it's evident that he considered her testimony, because you can read his what is called his motions for reasons for conviction and judgment. This judge actually considered all five of those women's testimonies, and even on the day of sentencing, he talked about the voices of all of the women that reached out that accused Dr. Cosby. Now, of course, Bill Cosby has never been, contrary to what people in mainstream media want to tell you, he has never been convicted of rape. Not once. Not with any of these women. Janice Dickerson, and on the witness stand, said that America's dad was on top of her in 1982, that he raped her. And yet, originally in her statement, she had stated that Bill Cosby said nothing to her when she tried to hit on him. He closed the door. So, which one is which? Now, the other lie about that is that Dr. Cosby, the Cosby Show was not even on in 1982. It didn't come on until September of 1984. And Brandon Turnikoff, who was the president of NBC programming at that time, saw Bill Cosby stand in for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. And it was there when Bill Cosby did his skit about family and about genealogy. And Bill Cosby did a skit in his set. He talked about how, the biggest fear is that when you're a parent, down the line that someone somewhere in the future is going to look like you. And it was funny. And it was the result of this that the Cosby Show was created. This was in 1984. What made it even further a lie, I remember what Janice Dickerson said, is that she flew out to meet Bill Cosby to get for an acting gig. She was trying to get into a movie role, and she flew out from a modeling shoot across in another country to come meet him, which that was another lie. First off, agents book acting deals for their clients, and agents get paid money when they do that. Excuse me, guys. So, who's in the chat room? Put something in the chat box, please, if you're watching. So, getting back on track, she gets in this defamation lawsuit that she settled with AIG, who is Bill Cosby's insurance company. Now, that is not the same thing as Bill Cosby settling, and I'm glad at least some people in the media corrected themselves, although if you go to TMZ, they'll say Bill Cosby settled suit with Janice Dickerson, which is not true. He did not settle any of these cases. The insurance company did, much like what happened with Michael Jackson. When Michael was accused, many people thought he settled that claim, but in reality, it was not Michael Jackson who settled it. It was Michael's insurance company, and there are court records that document that. So Michael went ahead and even not Michael, his insurance company went ahead and settled and paid that father over $20 million that he settled with. And the father actually, Evan Chandler, later committed suicide right after Michael's passing. We found out that he wanted to be a screenwriter, and he ended up writing books for a movie for Mel Brooks's Robin Hood Men in Tights, which obviously is not the best Mel Brooks movie by far. I'm a fan of History of the World Part 1. I thought that was my personal favorite. Of course, there's Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, but let's get back on track, guys. So insurance companies, when they settle, they don't settle. It's not the same as an attorney representing a client, whereas an attorney, I have to represent my client's interests, and I cannot settle a case unless, of course, there's contractual authority, power of attorney, but I do need to talk to my client beforehand. Well, in a case of an insurance company like AIG, they don't have to talk to Bill Cosby. He is also the fact that he's also incarcerated that doubles that, but they do not have to talk to him. And in fact, and I should have put this in the description box, the Hollywood Reporter, this is an article. Let's see, it's loading right now, but I'm going to put the link in there. It was posted yesterday. But again, if you remember a couple weeks ago, AIG had settled some other cases for Bill Cosby. Now, she sued Bill Cosby because his attorney, Marty Sinkner, made some comments about Janice Dickerson. And it's no secret. Shout out to my sister, Nicole. She actually has the video of the E! True Hollywood Story on Studio 54, where Janice Dickerson is talking about the drug abuse and the drugs and the sex and the alcohol and everything that was going on in Studio 54. The rules were loose. This was basically Sodom and Gomorrah Jr. at Studio 54. So it's not a surprise when you hear stories of people having sex in the disco room. Even if you listen to Mike Judge's stories from the tour bus, They talked about Rick James and how he had VIP status. He knew to get into the upstairs at Studio 54, and how people would just be snorting cocaine and women would be coming up to even Rick's band members having sex with him. Rick's band member talked about how a beautiful blonde model, and he doesn't name the model, gave him a blowjob when he put some cocaine on the tip of his penis. So, that's the type of stuff that went on. And I know for a fact Janice Dickinson was one of those models. I know that she was probably doing all of this stuff. It's no secret. She went after Sylvester Stallone, trying to claim that he was the father of her baby, and that wasn't true. She tried to get money out of him. But everyone should be disturbed by this, that you cannot be convicted. You're not convicted of something. What's up, Squeaky G? You're not convicted of something, but yet you're found guilty, and you got to put out money for this. Even though it's Bill Cosby, no, he's not paying this. It's his insurance company that's settling this. The mark and stain on him is done. At 82 years old, he can't even fight, something like this, because who knows how much time he has on earth. They waited until this man was blind. And many of our black celebrities, Monique called them out in our interview with Comedy Hype News. She said it. They're cowards. She said, "I've never seen so many men, black men, without a damn backbone." And she's right. She's right. You've never seen, even when I think of Hannibal Buress, they try to say that he's the reason this all started. You haven't seen Hannibal Buress ever since he made that joke. And he was in the last Spider-Man movie. He was in all of Judd Apatow's produced shit, and we know who he is. He's been in all of those. He was in all of those movies. You haven't seen Hannibal Buress, have you? Think about that. He's not been in a movie, I think, this whole year. Maybe a voice acting job. You see, when they don't need you anymore, you do the job for them, and you speak up for white supremacy. And by speaking up for white supremacy, I'm not saying he supports racists, but you shamed an elder in our community, a black man, and brought him out to the wolves. They used you. And they give you your 30 pieces of silver. But now they have no more use for you. Think about that. And not just him, even the Terry Cruzes of the world. Who else? I remember I know DL Hughley, and honestly, as much as I respect DL, I've been very disappointed in the way he acted with Cosby. And I'll say that. I didn't think it was good that he would go on the radio or go on VH1 and talk about Cosby on the Bravo channel, and talk about how, Bill Cosby's a rapist. Cliff Huxtable didn't rape anybody, but Bill Cosby did. How do you fucking know that? One of the Mooney brothers I was talking to, they say, "Oh, he raped my friend." Well, who's the friend? Give the name or don't say nothing. We can't. I keep saying this. This is not about putting down women who've been raped, but in our country, we have evidence. We have rules. It's due process. It's innocence till proven guilty. That's the way it is. And there's a reason behind it, because I'm pretty damn sure you wouldn't want to be dragged and lynched in the public media, and in the public without having your day in court. Because how would you have a fair trial if you got accused of something? There's a reason we have due process. There's a reason why we have fair and impartial trials. It's to prevent Salem witch burnings. It's to prevent the next George Steinman Jr. that gets executed at the age of 14. It's to prevent all of that shit. And you know what? Even if the Constitution didn't mean anything for us then, damn it, we're going to make it mean something for us now. We're going to fight for it. And that brings me to the next stuff about the Bill Cosby case and the right to appeal. And I said before, he has a pretty good chance of it. But it depended on whether these judges would be influenced by this whole Me Too movement and outside forces, which Judge William O'Neill, to me, clearly was. Now, I've posted in the description, guys. I've posted in the description the appeal brief for Bill Cosby, as well as the opposition that was filed by the state attorney general. It was an amicus curiae brief, which is a friend of the court now, Josh Shapiro. Now, Josh Shapiro, of course, is the attorney general. The person who tried this was the district attorney of Montgomery County. And Josh Shapiro, it's my understanding, is a Democrat. And this leads me further. Come election time, Black people, do not support the Democratic Party. Let me be clear. I'm not saying don't vote, but do not support people. Do not give someone blindly your vote just because they got issues with Donald Trump. A lot of people don't. And I don't care for him per se. His comments, especially for the four congresswomen, were inflammatory. They were racist. He's also, but I mean, he's always been like that and said stuff. We look at Charlottesville, very fine people. When you're talking about neo-Nazis that were out there, and white supremacists and other members that want to see Confederate statues still up. But you see, it wasn't until Donald Trump was speaking out against immigration that everybody started calling him a racist and talking about how bad he was. When he has had issues with blacks, there have been issues with him with the Central Park Five, even before he was president, when he took that ad out. Everybody knew that. It wasn't a surprise. Doesn't Cosby's appeal have to be tied to unconstitutionality or mistake in a lower decision? Yes and no. Yes, it is. That is correct. But what the court looks at is that since it's already been decided as to his guilt, there is a burden of proof on the defense, the appellant, basically to show that the case was not, he did not get, that the trial court erred in some shape or form, whether they erred in as far as the rules of the court and decorum. Did that impact his right to a trial? Or did they outright break a law? If they did something that was unconstitutional, that is correct. Now, they mention in the article, and I have all of this posted in Washington Informer, that the focal point that they're talking about Cosby's case to appeal would have to be based off the 5 women that were allowed to sit on the stand and testify, the 5 different accusers. Now, what his attorneys, what one attorney stated, his name is David Reicher, he states the defense's strongest argument is the erroneous to judge against Mr. Cosby. Well, I agree and I disagree. I was talking with a brother and friend of the program, a friend of mine, Judge Joe Brown. Judge Joe has a pilot that he's shooting for Hot Topics with Judge Joe. We're hoping it gets picked up. That would be good to see him back on TV. But let me get back further. What Judge Joe and I were talking about, he said it was not just that issue. The main issue, and I'm going to get to the main issue. Just hold on. I want to finish the article. I was just trying to answer Squeaky G's question. Specifically, the trial court abused its discretion. This is David Reichner continued. Abused its discretion, erred, and materially infringed on Mr. Cosby's constitutional right to due process of law under the Constitution of the United States. That's the 14th Amendment that applies to states. And the 5th Amendment due process of law applies to the feds. The judge should not have allowed the admittance of 5 prior bad act witnesses. The witnesses' allegations were too far remote in time and too dissimilar to the plaintiff's allegations. Now, that is correct. You're talking about ancient history that's being allowed when into the court. Some of the accusers go back almost 40 years. In some instances, 50 years that were allowed to speak. And of course, Bill Cosby, again, was not charged and convicted of that. However, when I spoke with Judge Joe Brown, that is only one part of it. The other part of it, and what is important, is that under the the Fifth Amendment, which guarantees your right against self-incrimination, and it also gives you, that's correct, there are multiple errors. It also gives you double jeopardy protection, meaning you can't be tried for the same thing. The Fifth Amendment dealing with self-incrimination kicks in because Bill Cosby gave a civil deposition, which with that Andrea Constand's lawyer, I forgot her name, Tronami, I believe. Let me see. Let me get her name. I want to make sure. I believe it was Dolores Troiani. I want to make sure. I want to make sure I get the right name. Dolores Troiani. That's her. Okay, yeah. She was the one that gave that Andrea Constand to be her civil attorney. And very interesting, Andrea Constand, this is documented, went to a civil attorney before she went to the cops, or she went to file charges, if I'm not mistaken. She sought the help of a civil attorney first before all of this took place. Now, under the Fifth Amendment, as I'm saying, with self-incrimination, the judge tells Bill Cosby, you have to give this deposition. And the reason he does that is because the prosecutor at that time, and here's where another error comes in, the prosecutor, who was Bruce Castor, he stated that there would be no charges filed against Mr. Cosby. There would be no bill of indictment. In other words, what we call, as attorneys, no bill. And no bill means there's no charges that are going to be pressed. And he even testified at a preliminary hearing. He had issues with Andrea Constand's testimony, but he felt the only best thing he could do was to try and make her a millionaire, which, of course, he did. She received, I've heard, and it's estimated, about $3.8 million from Bill Cosby. Now, one second. So, based off of this, he tells Bill Cosby there are not going to be any charges. The civil judge says, okay, Mr. Cosby, because there are no charges, I said civil criminal charges, you're going to have to come and take this deposition. And of course, when you are given a subpoena to take a deposition or to appear in court to testify, you do so under the penalty of contempt if you do not show up. So Cosby does answer the interrogatories, and he does answer the deposition. And the deposition, of course, while he does not state anything, I guess he perceived to be illegal, of course, when you know the right to remain silent, anything you say can be used against you in the court of law. And henceforth, we come back over 10 years later, or 12 years later in this instance, and a new prosecutor comes after Bruce Castor loses his election for DA. And Kevin Steele, who becomes the new prosecutor, decides he's going to run his entire campaign to get Bill Cosby locked up. And this is documented. Something that attorneys really are not supposed to do, yet alone a prosecutor, is to campaign on getting someone and making a promise of doing it, because as a representative of the state, a prosecutor is the most powerful person in the courtroom. Make no doubt about it, because he has a duty to accept charges and proceed or not. And of course, the judge can have the final say on a plea deal, but prosecutors can be lenient with things if they choose to. It's up to them. So he runs this campaign on, I'm going to get Bill Cosby if you put me in. And before the statute of limitations run, do you think it was a coincidence that 2 days before they run, that New Year's, Bill Cosby gets indicted? Remember, Bill Cosby had Monique Presley, who I think was a very smart sister. I think that she was I don't care for her now with her politics per se. I think that she's on that, is part of that whole clique with getting the Democrats and standing with them. But nevertheless, I think she's a smart attorney. I've seen her on Roland Martin's show. I don't really watch that owl, but I don't want to get into him. I don't want to get into that. So, yeah, but Monique Presley was on CNN schooling all of these accusers and all of the media, these pundits, telling them, making them look like fools, telling them, no, that is not what he said in here. This is what happened. And I know that does not mean an admission of guilt. The casting couch is not rape. Now, she didn't say that exactly, but, along those lines. Consensual sex with a married person is not rape. Consensual drug abuse. So if a man gives you 3 tablets, half tablets of Benadryl, and you take them voluntarily. Now, of course, drugs do different things to you, but to a person based on their body weight. But what she was describing was not the same thing as a quaalude. And the judge, and this is another error, he allowed the discussion of quaaludes to be talked about when quaaludes were not the subject of this proceeding, this criminal proceeding. An expert for the defense even testified that quaaludes were not blue tablets. They come in white. They're big. They're large. And Cosby, when those questions were asked about the quaaludes, those were pertaining to an incident with another woman. And back in the 70s, many people don't know this, but Bill Cosby played tennis. And so Ray Firm, so Bill Cosby was a tennis player. He had back problems, and he took quaaludes. So that happens. The other issue too that he has grounds for an appeal would be the fact that a juror was allowed to stay on there who was biased. Now, or even the appearance of impropriety, or the fact that he appeared to be biased is in reasons why. Let me start over. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm getting rambled up. Let me take my time. What I meant to say was that there was a juror who allegedly stated, juror number 11, we can all go home, he's guilty during voir dire. Now, voir dire is a process, probably the most important process in a criminal proceeding, because it involves the jury selection. And that's when the attorneys on both sides ask questions of the juror, whether they can be impartial, how they look at the evidence, what their occupation is. They try to get to know that juror and see if they're great to sit on the trial. And this juror supposedly made those comments when he was not selected, and he stated, "We can all go home. He's guilty." And this was heard by another potential juror, a black woman. Juror number 11 is white, and this was a black woman, and she brought that to the attention of the defense attorney, Tom Mesereau. And when it was brought to their attention, and she gave a sworn affidavit that, yes, she heard him say this, the judge called him in. He asked questions on the oath, and he asked him, "Did you say anything like this, or did you say this?" And the gentleman, juror 11, did not confirm he said it, but he also did not deny it either. So even after that hearing, the judge let the juror stay on the trial, excuse me. Now, that is a big problem. Even if he doesn't remember saying it, you can alternate jurors, and they do it all the time. And this judge, by allowing that, and then the prosecutor selecting him, shows that there was impropriety and bias in this case. Even if he didn't say, even if they didn't have the appearance of impropriety is the major issue. Now, there are some other errors that I can think of. I got to run in a little bit, but I'll just say another error that I saw in the case too was the presence of the media being out there. Now, yes, there's First Amendment rights that kick in, freedom of the press and freedom of speech, but the judge also has to ensure that the proceedings are fair and impartial, and he has to protect the defense from any outside influence. And that was not done. Many of you remember the actress who was actually a former Cosby Show, former guest star on the Cosby Show. She appeared and was half naked with her breast out and jumped right in front of Bill Cosby right on the lawn. They were actually writing things and hanging up posters on the steps of the courthouse, which should not have been allowed. And this is done all in view of the jury. Not to mention also, Nicole talked about a coffee shop being across from the courthouse that said and was putting comments on their cups and coasters talking about, "We support rape victims," and "We support the." Another thing too was there was the presence of a dog inside the courtroom, if I'm not mistaken, which is done necessarily when they have these types of sex crimes. In some jurisdictions, they'll bring a dog in as a self-help dog, like a service dog, to be there to comfort, sex abuse victims and women or anyone who's sensitive about that. So all of that is done in the presence of the jury. And another thing too is, we talked about this before, the outbursts that were made in the courtroom. Now, if you can even say that the judge couldn't necessarily protect what happened outside the courtroom, surely he could protect what goes on inside in the courtroom, and he did not even do that. He allowed witnesses to make outbursts on the stand, even allowing a witness to ask Mr. Cosby a question. "Do you remember me, Mr. Cosby?" Right in front of the jury. And right there, that is grounds for a mistrial, because the Fifth Amendment applies. Bill Cosby does not have to answer that. He is not required to answer a question. Now, of course, the judge can grant the objection of the defense when they state that and strike it from the record, but the jurors see that, and the truth be told, even if they don't consider it, they'll remember it. So the impact is still there. When one woman even says, "I want to see a convicted rapist go to jail," one witness, and yet Bill Cosby is not on trial for rape, they object again, Yana mistrial. Judge says no. Before this trial even began, when Mesereau and Kathleen Bliss, and I know both of them, they took over the case, they filed a motion to remove the judge, a motion to recuse. The judge said no, he's not recusing himself. Now, I don't know if this is brought up in the appeal, but it came out that this judge's wife is a sexual assault counselor. And she received donations or worked with groups to try to get Bill Cosby's awards and his scholarships that he's gotten from many of these universities, these academia, and she worked to get it removed. Now, how does it look when the wife of the man that has your faith in his hands, that's going to sentence you to 3 to 10 years for the rest of your natural life, how does it look when he's sitting on the bench and his wife is doing that? You tell me, do you think that's fair and impartial? No, they didn't care about any mistakes. It wasn't just about, we say errors. We don't necessarily say it was deliberate, but I honestly believe that they wanted this man in jail. I know they did. The media helped do it. The black celebrities who didn't speak out, or some of them who criticized Bill Cosby because they didn't like things he may have said personally, or how he handled things, like how he came at the young black comedians. People were upset about that. That's why D.L. Hughley is angry at Bill Cosby, because Bill Cosby tried to get, Def Comedy Jam taken off the air and was critical of all those black comedians saying the N-word and their language and so forth. But you don't break code and side against someone, especially when racists are doing it, when it's a lynch mob, because you don't like that black person personally. If something like this happened at Charles Barkley, and I don't like Charles, we know he's coonish, but if something like that happened where I saw he was being lynched, I saw things that were unfair, I would call it out. If I saw something that happened to Barack Obama, we always call it out when we saw people putting up dummies with Barack Obama with a rope around his neck, or he and his wife being called apes by the tabloids, by the newspapers. Rupert Murdoch in particular did that. Russian media did that. Telemundo, they had some anchors that did that, where they compared Michelle Obama to the Planet of the Apes. And Barack Obama, truth be told, hadn't done anything for the black community. He did very little, but we would worship him. People worship him. They're going to stand by him. Why does the appeal take so long? Is it because you're waiting in line to be heard? Well, the appeals court just takes time because you're getting, number one, the record, because the entire record from the trial goes before the appeals court, as well as they have deadlines and guidelines that they set with regards to briefs that have to be filed. Certain things have to take place. For instance, the first thing that Bill Cosby's new attorneys did, they filed a motion for a new trial. Of course, in typical fashion, Judge O'Neill denied it. Stephen O'Neill and Kevin Steele. I want you in Pennsylvania to remember, Montgomery County, what happens in election time when it's time for these guys to get reelected. Just think of the people that go before the court, that the young black men that go in that court, that don't have the money and means to hire someone like Tom Mesereau or Johnny Cochran. What do they do to them? That's what disturbs me. If they do that to America's favorite dad, what are they doing to the little people that don't have money? Bill Cosby's giving more monies to black colleges and universities and charities and any other black celebrity with the exception of Michael Jackson. A lot of people don't know that. They don't know that Michael gave monies to black colleges and universities. He had scholarships set up with the United Negro College Fund. He did a lot. Giving Little Richard back his catalog. Sly Stone giving him some royalty money when he got robbed. And Sly Stone, did y'all know Sly's homeless? What celebrities would come and support him? But let's get back onto it. He's got grounds to appeal this. Yeah, all right, Squeaky G, I see you. You knew about that. Squeaky G is I think he's my biggest fan. You're always in the chat room, always watching. Whenever I see, even if I see one person watching, I probably know it's you. So thank you. Thank you to my subscribers. But guys, that's it for me for right now for the stream. But just be on the lookout. He does have grounds. There are actually, I'm looking at this, there are 17 judges that sit on the appeals court. One of them is the only black, and she's a woman. The appellate court in Pennsylvania has 17 justices. There are some women who are tired of this Me Too stuff. We'll find out. Well, that's it for me, guys. Thank you for joining me. We'll be uploading another video. Peace and God bless. I'm out. All right. Thank you, Squeaky G.